What is going on, everyone? It's about time we made a video about our neighbors to the north, Canada. Canada is a country that is similar in a lot of ways to the US. After all, we have parallel histories to a degree. I mean, we both came from the same place, or at least got colonized from the same... Anyway, long story. Don't have time to get into it. Canada is a country of over 37 million Canucks. A Canuck is a nickname for Canadians, and it's also the name of the Vancouver, British Columbia's professional hockey team, the Vancouver Canucks. That's where we're going to start our foray into Canada. Just so you know, that is the first time I've ever used the word foray in a sentence. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Vancouver, BC, as it's known, is a city in the province of British Columbia on the west coast of Canada, right above Seattle. If you're from the US and you don't know what a province is, it's very similar to a US state. There are some differences, but this is a 10-minute video and I don't have time to go over it. And stop typing. Ask Siri. So why don't we get started with my top 10 reasons not to move to Vancouver, BC. The American's perspective. Number 10, the metric system. Vancouver and the rest of Canada uses the metric system like most of the world. This may be hard if you're visiting from the United States or Liberia. Liberia hasn't changed, well, because they're Liberia. They're more known for a bloody civil war and not really for higher education. The United States hasn't switched in part because it's a pain for people to learn a new system. Think about the confusion during a football game alone. It's Sunday morning, you're watching the Cowboys play, they get a first down and the announcer says that's a first and 9.144 meters to go. Just doesn't ring right. First and 10 sounds better. So what it boils down to is if you want to ruin Sunday for most Americans, switch to the metric system here in the United States. But if you're going to visit in Canada, just be prepared for it. Kind of brush up maybe. Number 9, it's outdoorsy. Bad news if you're a shut-in or a homebody. This city is very active. Very similar to Portland and Seattle, the people of Vancouver get outside and do things no matter what the weather. But when the weather is good, they celebrate. You have the ocean on one side, mountains on the other side. Vancouver is a very active city. Residents here love to bike, hike, and trike if they can find one. It'll definitely be hard to fit in with the other residents if you're not the outdoorsy type of person. Number 8. Vancouver is a very popular destination since it's very close to the US border, the ocean, and the mountains. On average, the city sees about 10.3 million tourists every single year. On top of that, they already have a pretty large population of year-round residents. Thankfully, it does contribute about $4.8 billion to the city, as well as support about 70,000 full-time jobs. So like all tourist destinations, the locals need you, but they kind of dislike you at the same time. That just happens in a tourist town. More than half of British Columbia's tourism-related businesses are located in the Vancouver coast and mountain regions. Number 7, traffic. There's no question that Vancouver is crowded. It is. The city is the biggest in British Columbia with 2.5 million Canucks in the city and metro area. Because of the massive amount of residents, it's no surprise that there is just an endless parade of traffic in the city. It has been found that residents on average spend about 30 hours in extremely congested traffic each year. This is why so many residents bike throughout the city. This is a serious biking town, not so much for the physical well-being, but for the mental well-being. Sitting in traffic takes a psychological toll on a person. You don't have to worry about road rage in Canada, though. That's some good news. Really not a thing. If you do see road rage, chances are it's some American that crossed the border to get their meds. Number 6, measles. In late 2018, there was an outbreak of measles in the Pacific Northwest of the United States that spread to Vancouver. In 2016, there were 2 cases, and in 2017, there was just 1 case. Just within the few months of 2019, there have already been 23 confirmed cases in the city as of April 4th. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of the anti-vaccine thing, so I really shouldn't be speaking on it, but this is bad, and a lot of people are contributing to the anti-vaccine movement. One thing I've always noticed, most of the people that I know that I've talked about this to, you know, the whole anti-vaccine thing, they're the conspiracy types. There's a lot of them with that mentality in Vancouver, apparently. Number 5, natural disasters. Vancouver experiences natural disasters every single year. Storms can get so bad here that there can be flooding, power outages, wildfires, you name it, they get it. However, the one most Vancouver residents worry about is the one they call the Big One. The Big One is an earthquake that is supposed to be magnitude 9, which will cause a tsunami that will supposedly destroy everything on the west coast all the way down to California. Experts say the Big One is overdue and should strike by 2045. Now, I grew up from California, less than a mile from the beach. I've been hearing about the Big One as far back as I could remember. It's gonna happen every year since oh God, it's every single year. We got new warnings about it. It never happens. It might, but I've never seen any proof that it's going to happen. But I'm not a scientist. Something people Vancouver and pretty much the whole West Coast worry about. Number 4, bad neighborhoods. Every city has bad neighborhoods, but Vancouver is a little extra segregated since each neighborhood basically has its own stereotypes. Downtown is mostly for high-rise living residents who can afford that type of thing, while Kitsilano is home to college students and families. East Vancouver is where you're going to find most of the crime and most of the homeless. And North Vancouver is typically new residents and is very family-orientated. Now again, like road rage, Canada bad neighborhoods are not like Los Angeles or Detroit bad neighborhoods. I was looking at the Google Street View of East Vancouver so I could, just kind of get a lay of the land and see what kind of a ghetto it is, and I found a crime in progress. If having hair this orange isn't a crime, it should be. Number 3, crime rate. Now let's piggyback off the bad neighborhoods. Like any city, Vancouver has some crime. Not a bunch, but they do have some. Violent crimes here are low, but property crimes are on the high end. Drug crimes are extremely high. Murders don't happen too often here, but Vancouver has the highest rate of unsolved murders in Canada. So really, drugs are Vancouver's biggest problem, and that's the reason I bring this one up. A lot of families with young kids want to move to Vancouver. That's a majority of the people moving in. And it doesn't take a genius to know raising kids in an environment with a bunch of drugs isn't a smart move. I mean, unsolved murders and, assaults and property crime aren't good things either, but they've got an extreme drug problem. It's for Canada. I mean, they've got an extreme drug problem for some bad cities in the United States, but Vancouver's pretty bad when it comes to drugs. Number 2, the rain. If you haven't heard the stories, Portland, Oregon gets more than its fair share of rainy days. Vancouver, BC gets on average only 1 day less per year. They also get 3 fewer sunny days. Vancouver is Canada's 4th most rainy city behind Halifax, St. John's, and Abbotsford. The city gets on average about 160 rainy days per year and about 55 inches of rain per year. Because of all this rain, residents follow umbrella etiquette. This just means point the tip down when the umbrella is closed, raise your umbrella when you're approaching other people, and buy a quality umbrella because cheap umbrellas fold out in the wind and could poke someone's eye out. Nobody wants that to happen on a rainy day. Actually, any day. I mean, I can't think of any kind of weather pattern that would be okay to have your eye poked out. Yeah, none. Here in Oregon, we don't do umbrellas. It's just a thing. If anyone sees you with an umbrella, they know you're not from Portland. It's weird. A rain jacket's all you need is what they say here in Portland. And before we get to number 1, don't forget there's a poll towards the end of the video that helps out with data for future videos. So please get involved. Answer the poll. And number 1, the housing market. The housing market in Vancouver is horrible right now. The city is currently experiencing a major drop in home prices. As of March 2019, the sales of homes have fallen 14% from last year, and last year they fell 50% from the year before. They have a lot of homes that are just sitting there. Nothing's moving. It's not like Vancouver is some nasty place to live. It really isn't. They have a lot of really nice neighborhoods that would be appealing to just about anybody. A real estate blogger crunched the numbers and found out that the Greater Vancouver area's home sales just had their worst March since 1986. People aren't buying right now in Vancouver. Now, why is this a bad thing for someone thinking about moving to Vancouver? Well, it's not, at least on the surface. The housing market has always been a great indicator of what is about to happen in the economy. And if the housing market slumps, the economy is sure to follow. If it does follow, people start losing jobs and can't afford anything like houses and anything but the essentials. That's kind of what happens when the economy dips. We're starting to get the same signs in some of the areas in the US. It's not good. Right now, it's indicating that there's some dark days heading to Vancouver. We'll find out. Now, like all of us, I really hope not. Vancouver is a beautiful city. There's just some things you should know before you move there, and this is one of them. Alright, so that is my top 10 reasons not to move to Vancouver, BC, Canada. I think the BC kind of tells you what I'm talking about. Don't have to say Canada, but I did. Anyway, like I said, it's a great city, great people, great things to do. These are just things to keep in mind before you make that jump to moving to Vancouver. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got some information that's usable for you. Everybody have a great day. Don't forget the poll. Be nice to each other.